and all, and maybe Disney made it up, because the story was that this kid died in the house where we shot the movie. Oh, yeah. This little boy.
Tom Selleck has been a Hollywood icon for decades, but recently something happened that has fans worried and the entire entertainment world talking. This is the kind of story no one expected, and once you hear what he has been facing, you will see the legendary actor in a completely different light. Start with the image you already carry: a trench coat cutting through New York wind, a commissioner who looks like granite but listens like a father, a Sunday dinner where the jokes land soft and the prayers land sure. That is Tom Selleck to millions now. For 14 seasons of Blue Bloods, he was Frank Reagan, the gravity in a room that never stops moving. Before that, he was the Hawaiian shirt that made a generation look up to see the horizon. Magnum P.I. gave us a hero who bled, laughed, and drove too fast for anyone's good. How do you go from there to here and then to now? The surprising answer is that he did it by choosing slowness in a business that punishes it. Roll back the years to the man under the mustache, the son of a real estate investor and a homemaker, an athlete who might have gone a different way, a kid from the San Fernando Valley who learned early that showing up beats being discovered. He worked his way through bit roles, commercials, false starts, and almost. The break was Magnum. That character would have eaten a lesser actor. Tom wore him without letting him wear Tom. The charm was not an act. It was a choice. The vulnerability was not a trick. It was a discipline. And when Magnum ended, he did the hardest thing you can do after being the center of a hurricane. He didn't chase wind. He built a life. That life sits on 63 acres in Ventura County, a working ranch with avocado trees that do not care what the Nielsen ratings said. Last Friday, the property used to be Dean Martin's place. Tom bought it in the late 1980s, then did what he does best. He worked, planting, pruning, irrigating, fixing. If you want to understand what happened to Tom Selleck, you have to understand he chose manual work to keep his mind honest, and his family, first paparazzi photos, eventually proved the rumor. That cowboy hat wasn't a prop. He knows the names of the men who keep the wells and the pumps alive. He knows the bite of a shovel and the patience a drought demands. He has talked about that ranch like a sanctuary and a job. The point is the same. He let the land set his pace when the industry begged to be the metronome. Then Blue Bloods arrived in 2010 and changed the shape of the calendar again. What looked like a network procedural was a stealth family drama that used cases as scaffolding for conversations about duty, faith, and grace. He became the country's dad without auditioning for the part. 13, then 14 seasons later, you could measure your week by that Friday night table in the Reagan's dining room. And then the news hit. In late 2023, CBS announced season 14 would be the last. 2 parts, winter and fall 2024. A long goodbye for the show that owned Friday nights for a decade, plus Tom argued for more. Publicly, calmly, stubbornly. He told interviewers he didn't agree, that the audience was still there in force, that the show still delivered for the network. He was right about the numbers. He still made peace with the ending and showed up to stick the landing. Blue Bloods' final season became a victory lap that didn't feel like a goodbye tour, because the work never dipped. The first 10 episodes aired beginning February 2024. The final 8 returned in October. And on December 13, 2024, the series said its last grace. The finale night hit a 20-month viewership high for the show. Afterward, tributes poured out from cast and crew, and the network basked in a rare thing: a hit that ended with dignity instead of a whimper. That is part 1 of what happened. The other part was Tom's posture. He stayed protective of the ensemble, generous in credit, and focused on the fans who would feel this like a family moving out of their neighborhood. what comes after a role that fits like bone. At 79, the question hit Tom the way it hits anyone who's loved a long project. He told the truth in those final press weeks. He was frustrated the run was ending because the numbers were still strong. He said he hoped the network might come to their senses. He said the cast wanted to keep going. And then he did the other true thing. He thanked people properly. He called it a privilege to honor New York's first responders and to play family on television for an America that needed to be reminded of how to sit down together. You cannot fake that tone. You earn it by showing up in January the same way you show up in May. Here is the plot twist that arrived right after the credits rolled. The Blue Bloods world didn't die, it branched. The season had barely cooled when word of a franchise extension started moving. By early 2025, a spin-off was ordered with Donnie Wahlberg headlining, a Boston-set continuation that keeps one Reagan in motion while others find their next roads. That didn't answer the Tom question. It did answer the fan question. The Sunday dinners might be over, but the family name would keep working. People speculated. Would Frank appear for a blessing, a briefing, a single stern look? Tom stayed quiet and dignified. The way a commissioner would a cameo would be a choice, not an obligation. The door? Not locked. So what happened to Tom Selleck in real life as the show ended? 3 things at once. First, he got to feel the weight come off the calendar. Blue Bloods was a New York shoot. Tom lives in California. For years, he balanced cross-country weeks with the ritual of returning to the ranch and letting the land fix his jet lag. When the final take wrapped, he had time again that belonged to him, to his wife Jilly, to the horses and trees he likes to brag about, like they are relatives. Second, he became the steward of a legacy, which is what a long run asks of its lead. He did the interviews, made eye contact, shook the hands, and walked through the goodbye without making it about himself. Third, he let himself consider what working looks like at this stage. Not gone, not retired in a rocking chair. Selective. There are chapters that get less attention and deserve more. He has been married to Jilly Mack since 1987. They raised a daughter out of the spotlight and kept their marriage out of the machine. He has spoken in that unhurried baritone about why he said no to jobs when his daughter was small, and why he tells younger actors that a family cannot be scheduled around like a meeting. He has also been a steady presence in veteran and first responder communities, because Frank Reagan wasn't cosplay. The suit carried something he wanted to carry in real life. When he shakes the hand of a patrol officer in Manhattan or a firefighter in Ventura County, the respect is bilateral. Health rumors attach to anyone who crosses a certain birthday in public. The truth is quieter and simpler. He talks about aches the way a working man does. Knees and back remind you. He works the ranch because it keeps him strong enough to keep working the ranch. He eats the way you do when you want to be good company at a table for a long time. He's been candid about slowing down some physical stunts years ago without becoming precious about it. There is no hidden crisis in the folds of his days. There is the ordinary miracle of a man aging well because he chose a place to stand still while the rest of his life moved. The work ethic that built Magnum and steadied Blue Bloods looks boring on paper and heroic in hindsight. He was almost 35 when Magnum hit. He knew drought before he knew flood. That makes you careful with water. On Blue Bloods, it made him careful with hours. Ask around and you'll hear the same phrase. He never let the set feel like a place where his bad mood set the weather. Leadership is invisible until it isn't. You saw it when guest actors returned for multiple seasons because a show treated them like professionals and family at once. You saw it in the way he honored Treat Williams in season 14 after Williams died. He could hold the grief and hold the scene. That is craft and character welded. Let's talk about the ending, because endings tell you who a person is. The finale did not explode the Reagans. It placed them. The cases closed, the politics stayed messy, the family sat down and made room for what they couldn't fix. Frank didn't deliver a speech about tomorrow. He made sure there would be one. Tom played that like a man who knows improvisation is dangerous near exits. You hold steady and let the audience leave with their hands. The next morning, Tom was back on the ranch. A hose needed moving. A fence wanted attention. Fame feels far away when a fence leans, and that is how he likes it. You might be asking if he will act more. Of course, he is not a museum piece. He's talked for years about taking roles that fit the season he's in. Jesse Stone, the police chief from the Robert B. Parker novels, is a door he has left cracked for ages. A limited series set in the West would be an easy yes if the writing respects the Saddle A one-off appearance in the Blue Bloods universe would be a favor to the story, not a stunt. The through line is taste. He will not work because his calendar is empty. He will work because something is worth leaving the ranch for. There is a question fans ask that sounds simple and isn't. What's he like? The answer is that he's exactly what you think, if you've watched him that long and still want to ask polite, in a way that makes you check your own posture. Funny in a way that buys people time. Serious about the craft and unserious about the theater of fame. A handshake that's not a performance. A thank you that lands like relief. A habit of learning the name of the person who just moved the cable out of his way. The older he gets, the more he appears to resemble the roles we've loved him in. The reality is, the roles were slowly catching up to the man. And so what happened to Tom Selleck is the rarest Hollywood story. He became more of himself, while the spotlight made him bigger. He did not trade one for the other. Blue Bloods ended at the top of its lane. He carried it to the last mile marker, set it on its kickstand, and walked to the truck that takes him home. People on the crew cried because a routine that became a life was over. People at home cried because Friday had found its shape and now needed a new one. He let everyone feel it. Then he went quiet, the way a person does when they trust that showing up somewhere else in a few months will say more than any farewell essay. Daybreak at the ranch comes slower than a network countdown. The fog lifts in thin sheets off the rows. The horses test the fence line like they are checking whether you remembered them. And somewhere a pump kicks on with the same quiet confidence of a man who has been making things work for a very long time. This is the part of Tom Selleck's life that explains the rest. The land does not clap, but it does keep score. It tells you if you did what you said you were going to do. He moves through that morning the way he moved through a set, with economy, a hat against the pale light, a glance at the trees that reads as quickly and as fully as a script, a hand on a rail that tells you whether it needs attention. Out here, the old Magnum smile is still there. It just has a companion it did not always have on screen, a patience that comes from putting tools away, because you know you will need them tomorrow, not from anyone telling you to. When a show like Blue Bloods ends, the headlines want a plot twist. The truth is better. The final week played like a well-rehearsed finale where nothing was left to luck. The long walk up the courthouse steps, the quiet in Frank's office before the door opens, and the day's problems rush in. The scenes with Garrett, Baker, and Gormley, those three people who were Frank's chorus and counterweight, were scheduled in a way that allowed each goodbye to be folded into the work. No speeches, not then. Work first. That has always been his religion. If you have ever wondered what those famous family dinners felt like on the last shoot, imagine the strangest blend of ritual and rebellion. The table pieces went down like they always do. Plates, flatware, the centerpiece that became as familiar as a family heirloom. Long hours, multiple angles, a rhythm the cast could set with their eyes closed. On that final go-round, they told the same stories they always tell between takes. And different ones, too. The ones you save for nights that feel like they might be the last food came and went, swapped, so it would look hot while remaining mostly uneaten, because that much time under lights makes pasta lose its nerve. Someone cracked a joke at exactly the wrong moment, and it was exactly the right moment. If you have made a family at work, you know how this plays. He has always been a study in tone. That last week, he never let the set sink into melancholy, but he also never tried to bully it into cheer. He sat, listened, and answered. He asked after people's families and futures. He told the young day players to take the money, the union hours, the credit, and the lesson, then go make more work. He told the lifers on the crew what they already knew but needed to hear one more time. The reason a set feels calm is because somebody in the big chair decides it will, he decided it would. Frank Reagan's last words were written to fit the man who played him. No grand summation, no tearful exit. A measured act of stewardship. Keep the city steady. Keep the people safe. Keep the table open. That is Tom's way too. So the next morning, when the public wondered where he went, he was already home with a list that had nothing to do with Q Score's a fence line to straighten, a valve to replace, a horse that needed something he knows how to give. The question everyone asked after the final credits was the one he had already quietly answered. What does work look like now? Selective and sincere. He is not a museum piece, and he is not trying to prove anything. The offers came, as they do. You do not carry two iconic characters across 5 decades and then become hard to reach, a limited-run drama with the right heart, a Western with dust that is not sprayed on, a prestige miniseries where the weight of the past does most of the acting, and yes, the Jesse Stone conversations never really stopped. That small-town chief with the old wounds and the good instincts remains a door Tom can walk through without faking a limp. In the Blue Bloods universe, a Boston chapter opened with Danny Reagan front and center and a new set of streets to learn. The phone does not ring as loudly for Frank in a show like that because it should not. But doors are doors. If there is a moment where a stern nod from the old commissioner would serve the story more than the nostalgia, he could do it. He knows the difference. He has always known the difference. Appearances that serve the narrative are the only kind he is interested in. There is a story from years back that fans rediscovered during the goodbye press, and it tells you who he is when cameras do not need him. When work got loud and the schedule tried to colonize his kitchen, he stepped back. He said no to things that would have added to the legend and subtracted from a life. One of those no's caused head-scratching in Hollywood for about 5 minutes and blessed his marriage for the next 30 years. He is a working actor who chose husband and father as the title that did not go on the call sheet. None of that is headline-friendly. All of that is why he lasted. The Ventura County Ranch is more than good scenery. It is a system. Avocados are not props. They are calendars printed by sun and water. Droughts come, fires threaten. Freeze snaps happen. He learned the ugly math of a bad season and the steady math of a decent one. Some years the Grove pays the taxes. Some years the Grove pays in peace instead, and the bank account handles the rest. That is farming. It is also acting, if you are honest. The seasons you cannot control teach you how to value the ones you can. He is not online narrating any of this, which is itself a story. No official social handles spilling anecdotes every morning at 8 o'clock. No comment wars. No performative nostalgia. When he appears, it is because he chose a person to talk to, not an algorithm to flatter. That choice keeps the voice in the work. It also keeps the temperature down around his name. We learn about him the traditional way, through the roles, the rare interviews, and the people who worked beside him and felt better going home because of it. If you want to understand the craft choices that made Frank Reagan feel like a man you could trust, Watch the quiet scenes again. The small stillness before a decision. The way he lets other characters talk themselves into clarity without stealing the scene with a sigh. The pauses are precise. He learned that on Magnum, refined it in Jesse Stone, and perfected it on Blue Bloods. In a culture that treats leadership like a scheme, he played it like an old trade: woodworking, farming, carpentry. Measure, cut, sand, fit. He never wanted you to notice the work. He wanted you to feel safe inside it. Not every chapter has been glowing. Anyone who lives in California knows water is a storyline. A decade ago, a dispute over trucked water and paperwork put his ranch in the news in a way nobody wants. He paid what was owed, took the lesson, and moved on without excuses or a press tour. That is how you handle being human when you are famous. You make it right, keep your head down, and make sure you are the one who learns the most from the mess. His service years often get a footnote because the star years shine so bright, but they mattered. As a young man, he served in the California Army National Guard during the Vietnam era. Quiet respect for people who wear uniforms, a realism about chain of command, and a belief that you can be firm without being cruel. He brought that with him to a set that pretended to be a police commissioner's office and made it feel like one not by barking orders, by setting tone. It is also why he honors the real thing when the cameras stop. He shows up for first responders and veterans without confetti. He has stood on parade lines and backstage in union halls and said thank you in a voice that makes the word do its job. He knows the difference between playing a hero and meeting one. It is a difference he never let a storyline blur. People bring up the ads as if they belong to another man, the ones about retirement tools and late life stability. He smiled on those commercials the way a neighbor would, and the jokes wrote themselves. But he meant what he said about planning. He did not sell something he did not believe in. He is of the generation that treats security like a craft, not a purchase. You may disagree with the product. You will not find him playing dumb about why people worry as they get older. He has been unwilling to insult that fear with glibness. Which brings us to something fans feel but do not name. He aged on camera in a way that gave people permission to do the same at home. The mustache became a monument. The posture softened without surrendering, and the voice did what good wood does when time seasons it. He reminded a huge audience that getting older can look like more authority, not less room. The secret was never magic. It was the work, the ranch, the family, and the refusal to fake the part of life most people feel like they are failing. He played it like another job you can learn to do well. In 100 interviews wrapped around the finale, he kept returning to the same grace note: gratitude. Not as a publicity word, but as a working tool. Gratitude keeps you coachable. Gratitude keeps you watchable. Gratitude keeps you from believing your own myth when you are tired and the schedule is long. When people said Frank Reagan felt like family, he did not correct them. He thanked them and took care to send them off with an ending that paid back years of Friday nights. We owe you the last week on set, so here it is, the way people tell it when they do not have to. Monday, the office scenes. Staples of the show's muscle memory. He and Garrett are running the day's dilemma at a low simmer. Baker doing what she always did so well, arriving with facts, leaving with trust. Gormley gave voice to the rank and file in the way great right hands do. Tuesday, the steps and the corridors and the hallways where countless extras carried the illusion of a city going somewhere. Wednesday, dinner. In between, hugs that pretended to be blocking and jokes that pretended to be notes. It was work until the last half hour, when the last shot wrapped and a new sound filled the room. Not applause. Not really. The kind of sound a family makes when it knows it just did something that will outlive all of them. He did not speechify. He stood, looked around, lifted a hand in a way that probably made you think of the Torch Song Trilogy's line about the effect of silence. Because even his silence tends to bring to mind lines other people wrote. He thanked the crew. He thanked the city. He thanked the fans watching at home who never visited the set and never will. He did not try to make meaning beyond what the work had already carved into the floor. He does not have to. If you know, you know. Back in Ventura County, there is a road he takes from the house to the far edge of the property that gives you the whole shape of what he has built. Trees, pastures, a ridge that eats the horizon. He drives it with the same concentration he took to work. You can spot where the wind had its way last winter and where the irrigation plan turned out smarter than the weather. You can see where he will be when a script finally becomes irresistible, on a tractor, probably, or with a hose in hand, wearing a hat that has ended more arguments than any speech. What happened to Tom Selleck after Blue Bloods is that he kept his promise. To the work, to the people who did it with him, to a family that has always come first, and to a piece of land that made the city feel like a place he could borrow rather than a place that owned him. That is a rare plot for a public life, which is why it does not fit neatly into any headline. He is not moving into a memoir moment. He is not announcing an empire. He is doing something wilder in a town that worships noise. He is waiting for the right thing, and while he waits, he is useful. And if the right thing is a brief return to a Boston squad room to look a grandson in the eye and remind him that the badge is heavy because it should be, he knows the way in. If the right thing is a short run of Jesse Stone episodes that give a whole generation a reason to make coffee at 10 p.m. and sit quietly with a flawed man who tries, he knows those streets too. If the right thing is a one-off, Western with dust that sticks to the screen, he will put the saddle on himself and ride without vanity. He will not need anyone to tell him how to hold the reins. The longer you watch him, the more the answer to the question becomes its own kind of comfort. Have you heard what happened to Tom Selleck? He became the man he played. He learned to be still when stillness matters, and decisive when it is time to move. He let a role end without trying to convert it into a curriculum. He went home. He will leave again when a story earns it. Until then, if you go looking for him, you will find him where work still looks like work. Under a sky that does not care how famous he is. Coaxing a stubborn valve into cooperation. Letting the day end when it is supposed to. He once said the ranch keeps him honest. That is what fans have been feeling all these years without the words for it. Magnum's charm, Frank's gravity, Jesse's hush. Those were all versions of a man whose private choices made his public work ring true. That is why the finale satisfied even the people who wished it would never come. It felt like someone telling you the truth in a tone you could live with. It felt like a man finishing the thing he started without breaking it on the way out. The headline promised drama. The ending delivered something better. Rest, readiness, respect. He has them in the right order. When we see him next, it will be because he put them in the service of a story that deserved him. That is the answer to what happened. The man who wore a badge on Friday nights is back on a tractor, and that is exactly where he belongs until the call worth taking comes through. If this story already has you wondering what really happened, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss the truth behind Hollywood's biggest headlines.